This episode is sponsored by ProVital Solutions.
Yeah, I just became obsessed with it. And that whole summer of 2016, I ate Whole30. I could tell you exactly what I ate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for literally 3 months straight. Did not veer from it. I did flywheel 3 times a week. I did Legree 2 times a week. And then I worked out with a trainer twice a week. So I literally had no days off, and I would do yoga in the evening after work because I worked with people that, you know, were much older, mostly in their 40s and 50s. And so they didn't really care what I was doing or going to happy hour with me. So it just basically gave me an out to kind of be like super introverted. And I got obsessed with like eating perfectly. And I was like, wow, my body finally looks how I've always wanted it to, you know, super lean. I mean, I was a size 00 though. And I mean, and at the time I didn't think I was small. I just thought I looked normal. Yeah. But if you look at pictures of me, I mean, I'm 10% body fat and I'm 5'3" for reference, but 10% body fat. I was like 100 pounds. I mean, so tiny.
Which is so dangerous for a female.
So dangerous. Didn't have a period for years.
I'm Megan Armstrong. Welcome to Life 6 Feet Above. 6 Feet Above was created when I started to share my story of spending 16 years wanting to be 6 feet under to now living a life full and happy 6 feet above. The more that I started to talk about my journey, my struggles, and my past, the more I realized people were genuinely interested and not judgmental at all, which is what I'd feared for so long. In fact, other people wanted to talk about their story as well, and for some reason they trusted me to do so. So the 6 Feet Above podcast is my way of helping to share other people's stories, finding out what works for them to create a life of happiness. Before we start this episode, I want to let you know it has some explicit language and some very serious subject matter. It may be triggering or sensitive to certain people. Please listen with discretion. This is Sarah's story. So episode 21 of the 6 Feet Above podcast, I am actually with a coworker and her name is Sarah Brown, but recently Sarah Laderberg.
Yep.
So congratulations on your wedding.
You.
I think you got the last good weekend before COVID or before quarantine.
We really did. I was talking today to someone and telling them I got married on March 7th, literally before shit hit the fan. And I don't watch the news just because like I'm an anxious person and I don't want to get involved in all that. So I didn't even know COVID was a thing, Corona, whatever. And then we kind of had, you know, like a little welcome party or just like some friends get together Friday night before the wedding. And everyone's like, aren't you nervous about COVID and all this? And I had a friend, she flew in from like Dubai and everything. And I was like, what's COVID? Like, why is everyone freaking out? And luckily we didn't plan a honeymoon right after because my husband's like, I cannot take a month off of work. Right. And I was like, I guess I really can't either. But we did like a mini moon and we stayed at a hotel that's kind of known for conventions, but down in South Florida. So all these groups had canceled and we got upgraded like crazy. And I was like, wow, this must be like a legit thing. But it worked out in my favor. I had like 3 bathrooms in our room. So it ended up being good. But yeah, my sister-in-law's wedding got canceled, one of my best friend's wedding. I mean, we have like 6 weddings now in 2021 between like March and July. Oh my gosh. So it's going to be a super busy spring.
Well, let's just pray that we're back to normal by then.
That's true. Yes.
I mean, but yeah, you definitely got the last good. I remember when you got married, I'm like, I think this is the last good weekend. There was one more weekend after that. It was like the 14th.
Yes.
I was actually talking to somebody about that yesterday, and but it was back when we still called it Corona, I think. Like it wasn't.
And we were like making fun of it. We're like Corona and lime, like you know what is this?
Literally. Yeah. Well, if only we had known then what we do now. Gosh, the world is a different place. So you are from Florida.
From Maryland, actually. Yeah.
But you grew up mostly in Florida or?
Well, I grew up, did high school, everything in Maryland.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So we just kind of had this house in Florida, big golfer growing up, thought I'd play professionally. I was like, I'm never going into corporate. I'm never going to really quote unquote work.
Right.
And you know, my dad led me to believe like you can, and my parents were very supportive. So they were like, you know, you can do this, like everything. In the end, I think it came down to performance anxiety, but,
we'll get to that.
Yeah. But, yeah, so grew up in Maryland. And then I think in 2013, 2012, it's like my sophomore year of college, my parents made Florida permanent because my mom and dad both had businesses in Maryland. And if you're familiar with Maryland, it's an expensive state.
Is it?
Oh, super. It's, you know, kind of almost the Northeast.
Yeah.
So taxes and stuff. And my parents were like, we're going to retire. You know, we're just spending a bunch of money we don't need to be spending. So why don't we sell everything and just move to Florida? And my parents are 40 and 50 years older than me.
Okay.
So I'm a second marriage for my dad. I'm his third kid, but my mom's only kid.
Okay.
So I have older parents. So they just wanted to retire, get down to Florida. So I guess for the past 7 years, I've spent all my time in Florida when I go home.
So that's why I was thinking, I'm like,
yes,
she's always going to Florida.
Everyone's always like, you're from Florida, right? I'm like, sure. Like to kind of.
You're like, actually, no, very different.
Yeah. But it's funny because I think since I was like 14, I've spent pretty much all my time in Florida that I had off on school breaks because I went to a private school. My mom was like, the more you pay, the less you go. Because I had like a month off for like Christmas, 2 weeks at spring break.
Right.
So it worked out in my favor for golf because I could take the time when it was cold in Maryland, go down to Florida, play golf. And I traveled across the world for tournaments and stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, it was kind of crazy. I feel like sometimes, it's one of the best sports, I think. But
yeah,
I was also a really good lacrosse player growing up and kind of made the choice just to do golf.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I had played lacrosse because I kind of thrive in that team aspect. And I'm already an only child. And I feel like golf just made me a little bit more introverted than I needed to be. I don't know.
Right.
But I made great friends growing up in junior golf and stuff. And of course in college. But we didn't have like a women's golf team in high school. So I played with the guys, which was great. You know, I was good friends with them. Went to prom a lot.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, come with prom to me.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's kind of my backstory, I guess.
Okay.
You know, so from Maryland, then went to school at Mercer in Macon for golf.
Okay.
Thought I was going to go to South Florida. That kind of fell through, but went to school in Mercer and honestly hated it my freshman year and then ended up loving it.
Really?
And then that's kind of how I chose Atlanta after, because when I went home, my dad was like, well, if you don't want to play golf anymore, like you need to go get a job. And I was like, oh, where do I want to go? So Atlanta was kind of that natural move.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So when you grew up in Maryland, your dad already has kids.
Yes.
So how much older are they than you?
Yes. So this is interesting. My dad had his first kid at 19.
Wow.
Yep. And my dad was born in 1944. So he's old. He's 76.
I'm literally trying to do the math really quick.
I know. Yeah. So
okay.
This past Saturday just turned 76. So he's 48 years older than me, about 50 years. But, he has first kid at 19, his second one, I think at 26. So if I can do the math, and I have to be honest, this is a long-winded answer, I feel like, and it gets into kind of my family dynamics.
Sure.
But, I've only met them once in my life.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So it's just an interesting, sometimes when a parent remarries, the kids just don't always gel. And there was some, kids kind of tend to go with their mom. And I don't think it was a good divorce.
Yeah.
I really don't even know a ton of backstory. I don't even know their mom's name.
Like you've never had a conversation with your dad about it?
Kind of. I remember he sat me down probably like 13 being like, so you have like two siblings.
Really? So you didn't know until 13, basically?
Something like that. And maybe 13 is an exaggerated answer. Maybe it's like 9, 10.
Yeah.
I just can't really remember.
Older.
But I was older.
Yeah.
And, so they weren't really in my picture growing up. So I really truly was an only child. But so they're a lot older. And so my dad's actually a great grandfather at this point.
No way.
Because they kind of, I think my sister had a kid around 1920.
Okay.
And my dad I vaguely remember my dad saying that he had tried to tell her, she does have options with, and I think as a woman, you're kind of like, well, I don't want a man telling me what I can and can't do.
Right. But he's speaking from experience because he was 19.
Yeah. And he just saw her potential, and he put a lot of effort, time, and money into those kids, I remember, and I had kind of a different upbringing than they did too.
Sure.
So I think there was some resentment there.
Sure.
So she had her first daughter, and then her daughter, I think, has recently had a few kids. So
wow,
they have kids pretty young. Yeah.
But you really don't have any correspondence
not
with
a
them.
huge, I mean, I'm like Facebook friends with them.
Did they come to your wedding?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, it's interesting.
So for all intents and purposes, we'll just say you're an only child.
Yeah. Definitely an only child. Yeah. And
which makes sense. Like, and granted, this is seeing you from the outside. Like, Sarah and I met a few years ago. I actually trained her at our former employer, or former job called Sculpt House, and now we recently are working together again at Stat Wellness, which is a functional medicine and movement facility on the west side. So we work together as trainers there. But when I first met you, I always got this sense that you were very close to your mom, and the more that I've talked to you, the more that it makes sense. That we are so I'm also an only child. But we're very similar and very different at the same time. Like you're super close to your mom, it seems like, from the outside.
I definitely am.
But I was not growing up. Like I did not like my parents.
So I will say, growing up, my mom, I mean, it was like World War III in our house.
Okay, so maybe we are very similar.
So I mean, like, I think one time our neighbors almost called the cops because they were nervous because we were yelling at each other so loudly. And we lived on, so I'm from Annapolis, Maryland, so we lived on the Severn River there, which is like goes right out to the Chesapeake Bay. Gosh. So the noise carried a lot. So, it was, we had a tense household growing up.
So what was it? What was the dynamic like with your parents? Was it, for me, it was very, I felt very suffocated growing up. I felt like I could not do anything without them not knowing, and, became a very good liar.
Yes. So I think because I had older parents and my dad had experience with two kids that were just like a little crazy, I guess you could say. And what teenager isn't crazy? But I mean, I think there was just a lot of stuff that was, I don't think that was a super stable household. And so I think my dad, seeing that and having raised kids like that, my dad was strict.
Really?
There's times in growing up, like I haven't told Kevin a lot of stuff, and I think I just like suppress it because I don't think about it because I'm like, it's not relevant anymore.
Do you feel embarrassed?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I feel like, and we'll get into like my past and stuff, but like, I feel like 2020 is like a year I have just been kind of like woken up again. And I feel like I'm just coming back to myself again. And it's like, I feel, and it's almost like COVID gave me time to like, I'm an overanalyzer and I will think about things I have said to people from like years ago. And I was like, and so I feel like I'm just thinking about my childhood and stuff. And it's like, sometimes I almost have resentment to how I was raised because I feel like I didn't have like that freedom. I felt really suppressed, and it was like, well, you're not going to sleepovers because we have golf and it makes you really tired. And I mean, now I understand we'd stay up till 2 eating God knows what and drinking.
But
and all
you
that
missed out on being a kid.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like my parents didn't give me the leeway to kind of make mistakes and then learn from them. And then it's like, I went to college and it was like, oh, free for all, gain 40 pounds and like ate, drank everything, and so I always was kind of thankful I didn't go to like a huge school because I'm like, I don't know what would have happened there.
Yeah, I could tell you what would happen. I went to Syracuse. I know exactly what happened.
I don't think I would have made it out of freshman year. But so I just felt, like you said, and almost embarrassed too. And I remember like not wanting to have friends over. One, because we had a house, like my mom's very type A. So like there was no kid friendly anything in our house. She's an artist. So like it's very much to show off her art and have nice stuff and whatever. So like there wasn't a huge amount of space either because like our whole 3rd floor was my parents' bedroom. I had a whole wing of the house because there was only 3 of us. So we didn't need to have like 4 or 5 bedrooms in our home necessarily. So I just felt like growing up too, it was just Like I didn't have space to bring friends over. I was almost embarrassed with like how my family dynamic was
Right.
and how things were growing up. So
Were you embarrassed at the time, or this is all like in hindsight?
I think it's in hindsight because
Yeah.
now I know what I was feeling.
Got it.
But I didn't know what I was feeling at that moment.
What did your dad do?
So my dad owned like the most random thing. He owned a book bindery.
Really?
In Baltimore. Yeah. He was just like, I figured something that could make, a decent amount of money. So he owned that. And then we also actually had I will say overall had a great childhood, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But he also owned, I don't know how some viewers will take this or listeners, but a hunting business in South Africa.
Okay.
But nothing, we're not poachers or anything.
Right.
You need to control the wildlife, which I don't think people necessarily understand sometimes. So he owned a hunting business over there with a business partner. So I'd go to South Africa a lot, and I grew up hunting and doing all that too. And so my dad traveled all the time, taking clients to South Africa. He's hunted in like Antarctica. I mean, doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
But he would take you on trips too?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I haven't gone to Antarctica because I don't think I would last doing something like that, camping. But yeah, so I grew up going to South Africa a few times. Yeah. At the time though, I was like, why can't we just go to Florida like every other kid?
Right.
And because we'd go to like the bush. So, I mean, like it wasn't like, it was nice, but it wasn't like super, super nice. So, yeah, it was, I just had like a different childhood, I think, than like that typical. And I grew up in a very, suburban, well-off community. Yeah, very much. And so I think I just knew from the start I was different. And I don't have any resentment necessarily, but at the time I think I resented my parents for like not, just staying on the same path as everybody else.
Not allowing you to be a kid.
Yeah.
And I hear like, I hear a lot of almost hesitation in your voice to like say some of this stuff, which is totally normal.
I feel like this is a good therapy session for me.
Everyone leaves when I'm walking people out the door, they look at me and they're like, that was like the best 1 hour of therapy ever. I'm like, this is what I'm here for. And I think it's because I've been through so much in my life, and I feel like I can kind of read people, and like I get this feeling from them, and I still very much feel that you are dealing with a lot of the stuff that you went through. And like you say, you're finding yourself again, but I actually think you're discovering it almost for the first time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's probably a better way to say it, for sure.
And we, we'll dive into this too, but we talked about, you coming back to work after COVID and Corona and all this stuff and quarantine and just having the anxiety of like, where do I go? What do I do next? And I guess speaking as like, not even to say like a boss, a coworker, a mentor, somebody that I've worked with you before, I could feel the anxiety, and we just had an honest conversation that's like, it's okay. It's okay to take some time. It's okay to feel the way that you're feeling. And I think the same way that we talked about that is how we can talk about your childhood. Yeah. Because here's the thing, like, we didn't have a choice in the matter. Mm-hmm. The way we were raised is the way we were raised. Yeah. And I always say what happened to you is not your fault, but what you do with it is your responsibility. Yeah. So seeing you now really kind of dealing with it head on, and this is what, 20 years later, right? Yeah. Kind of dealing with it now and understanding like we are the way that we are as adults because of a lot of the stuff that we went through as kids. Yeah. And, I talked to some people that went through really extreme situations. Like Kim Shaper came on and talked about the
so
abuse
emotional.
and sexual abuse from her grandfather. And it's like, she's still dealing with it today at 40 years old. Yeah. But she's taken the steps and done the work to realize like, this isn't my fault that this happened to me. It sucks that it happened to me, but what I do with it and how I let it affect the rest of my life is on me. Yeah. Right. So just being able to kind of like compartmentalize and separate that out and know that you just, you saying that about your dad and how some people will take it like, you know what I say? Fuck it. Yeah. That's you had no choice. You were a kid and that's what your dad did. And, right, wrong, indifferent. Yeah. It is what it is.
Yeah. It's, And like you said, I think I'm almost sometimes like embarrassed to talk about it. And it's not like I had any kind of extreme issues growing up, you know, like Kim did, you know, and sometimes I feel like, well, why would I complain? Like I had a really great life, you know, and but they're just things too. And alcohol's a big issue in my family. And,
really?
I mean, I rarely talk about it, you know, and
is that with your dad or mom?
It's with my dad. Yeah. It's hard, you know, and I was so, I don't want to say embarrassed, but I really kind of was growing up. I mean, like there are some things I remember, and like I would have friends over, and it's like, I can't imagine my mom though, you know, like I'm sure she was embarrassed of other parents learning that out about her husband, you know, and it's like, it's hard to watch. And I know so many people have an alcoholic parent or aunt, uncle, whatever, or, you know, drug addictions. It's so common. Yeah. But it is so hard to like watch someone go through that. And it's like, sometimes I wish my dad would just do a whole 30. I'm like, you would feel so great if you did that. But he was like, I'm never doing that. But
does he still struggle today?
Yes, he does. So I think I talked to you about when he had really early, when COVID hit, he had like his 4th stroke, and it's alcohol induced. Yeah. He had his first stroke, I think 2008, 2009, when you're a business owner and the world's falling apart. Right. So he was like very under a lot of stress. So sure. I think that caused the first one. But I mean, it's tough, you know, and it's hard to talk to someone who does struggle with alcohol, you know, they almost feel embarrassed. And I feel like with that generation too, they don't want to change. Like they learned that like, this is the way I was raised to eat. Like, this is how I do it. And my dad was born in the 40s. And so like, he was also raised with like the woman does the cooking and cleaning and, you know, and I mean, I literally don't know how my mom did it. Like she ran a business, she was traveling the world for it and like had dinner on the table. And granted, she had some help for me because she couldn't take me everywhere, but like she still cooked dinner and she had parents dying of cancer. And she's like, I had like 8 speeding tickets in like 3 months because she was like, I was crazy. And she was like, I just kind of blacked out for like 5 years. She was like, it was fine, but I got it done. Yeah.
Survival mode.
Yeah. Survival mode. And it's hard because like my mom, she can't necessarily come and visit all the time. And like we did take a really good girls trip to California this past year. But the whole time I think she's really nervous of leaving my dad alone because what if he wakes up in the middle of the night, had a stroke, you know, or a seizure, drinks too much and falls. I mean, it's just,
she can't really enjoy herself.
She can't. And I know it's so hard to watch my mom, and she talks to me a lot because I'm really kind of her, I mean, we're best friends now.
Board, safe space.
Yeah. And we've really come back like a full 180 from where I was when I was 16. So, you know, I'm her sounding board, and sometimes I have to be like, Mom, I'm not your best friend. I still am your daughter. And like, he's still my dad and I love him. And like, I never really talk about it with Kevin, even who's my husband, Kevin. I never really talk about it with him because I don't want, and my dad is a great guy. I mean, he is like mayor of whatever club he's at playing golf, you know, like everybody loves him and he really is nice and patient with everybody else, but his family. But he struggles with drinking, and I never want Kevin. He saw something this past time we were down there. I guess it was late April this past year when we were visiting during like COVID. But he saw something and he mentioned to me, he's like, wow, I never really understood it until I saw that. And I was like, I love you, but please don't tell me that next time, you know, because I just don't want him to see him in a bad light. Because he really is. I mean, he wants everything for me and everything for people around him.
Well, and I also think, and correct me if I'm wrong because I've never been married. But I also think you want to say to him, like, please don't love me less because that's my family.
100%. Right? Yep. And I don't want him to be like, I just don't. And then Kevin knows that I don't drink a ton. I think because I've seen how my dad acts, you know, and I just don't want that for my kids. Not that I don't drink, but I don't know. I just don't know if I would become addicted to it. And
Yeah.
it's something that runs in the family.
Sure.
You
Sure,
know,
sure,
there's
sure.
multiple people in our family that do have issues with alcohol. So, and I already had kind of addictive behavior with like my disordered eating.
Right.
So I don't
Right.
know if it would kind of take on its own life with that.
Right.
But again, like you're 100% on, like, I don't want Kevin, and he would never, but I
But
just
it's
don't.
always going to be in the back of your head because
Yeah.
that's always what you've thought your whole life.
Exactly. And it's hard, and it's so hard to watch my dad go through this, because it's like, I want him to be able to teach our kids how to play golf, and I want him to be around, and like, I know he's always like, oh, I have about 10 years left. I'm like, why are you saying this?
Right,
Like,
right.
you know, like, don't.
Have you ever talked to him?
I think I need to, but I think I'm scared to.
So I wonder if you could approach it, not necessarily like, because I think sometimes when we talk to somebody about their addiction or their behavior,
Yeah.
it's very, it's like scolding
Yes.
versus like, I love you so much that I just
wanna
want you to be
help. Yeah.
healthy, and I want you to be around for my kids, and I want them to see you, because he's going to have to make the conscious decision, and he may or may not at 76
Yeah.
to change his ways. Not necessarily because someone's telling him to,
Yeah.
but for an emotional attachment. Like when I talk to people about, you know, losing weight or getting into the gym, I'm like, don't do it because you're trying to fit into a size 4 for your wedding.
Right.
Because what happens the day after your wedding?
Yeah.
You know, game on.
Yeah.
But if you do it for a really significant emotional attachment and really figuring out, okay, like my dad, you know, he works out still to this day because he wants to be strong. He wants to grow into a 90-year-old body.
I love that.
And
Yeah.
like he just has a different mentality.
Yeah.
But I know exactly where it comes from. He was a fat kid. Like he was made fun of at 13. Like all of this stems from his childhood.
Yeah.
And so there's an emotional attachment for him and the way it makes him feel
Right.
differently now. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't do it for anyone else.
Yeah.
But again, it's like an alcoholic. You
Yeah.
cannot tell them to do something until they're ready to do it themselves. Just like mental health, just
Yeah.
like eating disorders, just like all these things that we deal with.
And my dad was a smoker, and my mom said, you know, if we're going to have a kid, like you need to
Right.
cut that out. And he like hypnotized.
Hypnotized?
Hypnotized, yeah, whatever. Just making up words. School is never my thing.
No,
Hypnosis.
hypnosis.
Yeah,
There we go.
thank you.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. This is why we're fitness instructors.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So he quit smoking by that.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, he literally tried everything, and my dad's not into woo woo stuff,
Right.
you know? So like, I know that he's able to have that self-control and like, you know, make himself better, you know,
Right,
but
right.
I just know what he's doing to his body, you know, and it's like, you're killing yourself early,
Yeah.
you know, and it's
Yeah.
not fair to your family. Like, is my mom, who's vibrant and she does Legree like 5 times a week at Core
Yeah,
Evolution.
yeah.
So, you know, and she's 67, about to be 68 in September, you know,
Yeah.
and so it's hard, and they have that, you know, 8-9 year age difference. So, it's kind of like showing through right now.
Right.
Which is tough.
But I guess it's a good, you know, for people listening, it's a good lesson in the fact that we are only responsible for our own lives and what we bring to the table. And it's unfortunate when you want something so bad for someone else, but the more that you stress about it, it's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the biggest thing you can do is to inspire and support and tell people how much you love them and that you want them to be around for this reason, and like scolding them or making them feel bad about it. It's not
Yeah.
going to necessarily make any difference. Right. Just like, you know, growing up, you felt bad about feeling bad when you had nothing tragic
Yeah.
happen. But some people that would listen to the story might be like, well, it was tragic what you had to go through with your dad.
Yeah.
You know, so it's all on different levels. It's all different perspectives.
Yeah. And, you know, and he's not like a happy drunk, you know?
Right,
So
right.
there were some things I think I saw as a kid that,
Stick with you.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
I've told one therapist one time like a few things that had happened.
Yeah.
And it like immediately brought on like tears. Like I'd never told anyone. And it's just, you know, it's like, I don't want, you know, like I've said this a million times already, but I just don't want my kids to go through that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just, but I think too, like if I sat my dad down and I talked to him, I think it would probably come from a different space than where, And my parents are both very high strung. So I grew up in a very like high anxious, high stress, high strung environment. And I'm very much like type F, if that's even a thing, like very scattered, very messy, not dirty, but I am who I am. And so I think, you know, if I sat my dad down and talked to him, it might not necessarily mean more, but just like, I think coming from your own kid, I'm sure it's like, wow, she really notices it, because we never really have had the conversation about it. Yeah. And I'm sure my mom, when she talks to my dad about it, I'm sure she's nice, but I also know sometimes when my mom is like trying to tell you something, it can come off a little, you know, harsher than it means.
And I always say the best time to talk about something serious is when you are not fighting. Like
yes, we make sure that you know, things are
like
good.
You talk about it when things are like, you know, everyone's on an even keel and there's no high stress situations going on. It comes from a place of love versus a place of like control. Yeah. And that's the best way to get a result is doing it when there's no argument. Yeah. You know? So I guess I would just encourage you. Gosh, I didn't even know we were going to talk about this.
I know, I didn't either. It like took a complete turn. But it's kind of a good backstory for how I like...
Right. Where we're going to go next.
Yeah.
I guess I would just say, you know, I would take a chance to talk to them in person. I feel like you see your parents decently. Like,
yeah, I mean, they...
Quite a bit, right?
Oh, yes. Probably every 2 to 3 months. Like, it's hard because we don't get paid when we take time off. Sure. But it's like... I feel like right now I kind of have to make a point to go see my parents just because they are older and stuff. And it's tough. So
I would just, you know, set up a little excursion with him separately, or like if he likes to go fishing still, or go, you know, set up a fishing and just, it's really hard to start that conversation, but you don't want to look back and say I should have. Yeah. You know?
I agree. I just don't want to like something to happen and be like, man, I wish like 3 years ago I just had said something, you know? And I don't also want to have that like, you know, feeling like we should have talked and then he's not available to talk or something.
But I also think it's fair for him to know how you feel about how you grew up. Mm-hmm. You know, like not in a blaming way, but just so you know, this has affected me my whole life and I love you so much, but I am still very much dealing with a lot of the anxiety that stems from my childhood and growing up around that sort of environment. And do they know about, you know, your eating disorders and orthorexia? And
so they do, but I know my mom's going to be listening and she's going to take things very personally. So mom, don't take it personally, but
remember, it's your story.
It is. Right? Yeah. But they never said anything. And I love my parents to death. Yeah. But sometimes my mom made a comment and she was like, wow, remember how good you looked, you know, like 3 years ago? And I was like, yeah.
Remember how unhealthy I was?
I was not eating. So, so they did know, and we just never talked about it.
Is it like a perfectionist thing though? Like,
it's so weird because it must be how I'm type A or something, or how I am a perfectionist because...
No, but I'm talking about your mom.
Oh, her, yes.
Right? Seeing it from the outside. Like she's the artist that all looks good. As long as it looks good, we're good.
Exactly.
When in reality, it's like, no, I'm not good. I'm struggling.
100%. Yeah. And my mom's never one to pretend we have a white picket fence and everything's great. And I mean, not that we ever talked about my dad's issues to anybody, but... because my mom didn't want to air all of our dirty laundry, but it's just she never, I don't know, I guess she just wanted to seem like everything was fine, and I wasn't necessarily, you know, not well. I seemed like I was doing well, and it's not like I look emancipated and you know, in that sense. And I think
emaciated.
Yeah.
I knew what you meant.
What's emancipated mean?
Emancipated is when you're like 15 and you're like, I don't want to live with my parents anymore. And
well, that's true too.
You emancipate yourself. Maybe this is like a very subconscious thing that's happening right now. Wow.
Oh my God. I'm like crying. I'm laughing.
But that's funny you said that. So we're gonna transition into the eating disorders, the orthorexia. But I was just having this conversation with a guy friend of mine the other day. And he's like, his argument was, you know, if you're bulimic, you look emaciated and you look unhealthy. I'm like, you have no clue how many women are struggling with eating disorders that actually look healthy.
Yep. And that's, I was going to say that too. It's that like literally anybody can have like a disordered eating, something going on, you know, and it's, and funny enough, I don't know if Kevin's going to hate me for saying this, but he actually went through disordered eating in college. He was a pretty serious triathlete, did the whole Ironman thing.
Yeah.
And most people just think, oh, it's like, you know, a tiny white woman who's going through this eating disorder. But I mean, it affects all kinds of people, you know, and most people don't think of men to have an eating disorder either.
Sure. Or somebody in fitness.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. They think like we're well balanced.
Right.
We know how to eat and whatever. But I mean, so I think it actually started because of a Whole30, and not to
bash on
diss
that,
anyone.
but, yeah.
And I think Whole30 is a great program for learning ingredients and real food and whole foods. And how to nourish your body. So I really do think it's a great program. However, not for someone necessarily like me. So it really started, I graduated college in like 2015. Then I moved to Atlanta kind of late 2015, got a job. And I was someone that always, I think I'm having a really long-winded answer right here, but if I like start like a few years ago in college, like went to college, gained like 40 pounds, had a good time. And then even though I was a college athlete, and then lost it all in the summer. Parents never said anything to me, never really, you know, made comment to my body.
Sure.
I remember someone saying like, wow, Sarah got strong in college when I was playing golf. And I was like, oh gosh.
That was their like definition of how you looked?
Being bulky and kind of bigger.
Hey guys, it's Megan. I'm excited to introduce you to our new sponsor, ProVital Solutions. ProVital is a wellness solutions company that I'm proud to partner with to bring you this episode of 6 Feet Above. They are passionate about health, wellness, and community. Their first two product lines are the purest, highest quality hemp oil supplement products on the market. I'm a fan of the PVS team, and I've been using the ProVital Full Spectrum Oil and the ProVital Performance Gummies for the past few weeks. ProVital Solution products are quickly becoming the preferred choice of athletes, health and wellness advocates, and even active octogenarians. In fact, the PGA has approved the ProVital Performance product line, and PGA rookie Matt Neesmith is a part of the PVS team. Please visit provitalsolutions.com to read more about this wonderful company and use the code 6feetabove at checkout to get 5% off on all products you purchase. So you gained 40 pounds and everyone just assumed that you were just meatier? Like,
just meatier. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Yeah, you know, lifted some weights, which everyone's like, oh, lifting weights makes you bulky, which no, it does not.
Right.
So it's what you eat and what you drink.
Right.
So I had a great time in college. I mean, I was going to the club, rolling to workouts the next morning, like puking in the trash can. My coach was like, you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. So gained 40 pounds, lost it that summer, went back sophomore year, thought, and I feel like...
Did you lose it in a healthy way?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I mean, I was working out probably 3 hours a day, playing golf. But I will say I did not care about what I ate.
Okay.
But I also was like, what are you, like 18, 19?
Right.
You know, so like you're still a teenager, you know, good metabolism.
Your metabolism is still up there.
It's still running. So I still ate like Doritos in the summer and like I didn't really understand ingredients and stuff. And I will say, growing up, I grew up in a very healthy household. Like my mom was making cauliflower mash in the 90s before like it was kind of a thing, and zoodles and all this stuff. But I didn't necessarily get into like understanding where food came from and all of that kind of later on in life.
Got it.
So I just thought, you know, like the baked chips were healthy, you know, like that standard American kind of thing. Yeah. So still eating that, and then went back sophomore year. I think I had a slight eating disorder, but like didn't necessarily have one because I would still like try to restrict, but then I would binge thinking I was okay to binge because I restricted all week. Yeah. But I still ended up gaining weight, lost it that summer, gained weight, lost weight, that whole thing.
So this went on all of college.
All of college. Yep. And if you look at my college graduation picture, I mean, I already have a round face, and so it is so round. But I don't regret it at all. I mean, everyone in college, is like a little bit meatier. So it was great. And I'm just not someone that is naturally very thin. Like, I have a very athletic body. And I used to kind of hate that growing up. And
Same.
It's like in high school, I was like, oh, I'm so fat. I was like a size 0.
Like, right.
And I remember someone in high school said, they're like, you work out and play golf all the time. Like, why aren't you like super defined and toned? I was like, what? Like, so that like stuck with me when I was in high school, but, got over that. But, so graduated 2015, moved to Atlanta kind of late 2015, trying to figure out if I was going to play golf or not. Right. And I was still playing on some lower level professional tours. Like there's the LPGA, Symetra, and then there's just some like lower tours you can play on. So just did not like it. I mean,
but you did that here in Atlanta?
In Florida.
Oh,
sorry.
in Florida. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So spent college in Macon, then moved back home to Florida.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I just didn't know anyone in West Palm Beach. I didn't make the effort to like really make friends and stuff. And, I just really had no idea what I was doing. And so I just made a really quick call and I was like, I'm moving to Atlanta. I was a marketing major in college because I was like, oh, it's easy. I'll get, easy like A's or whatever.
Right.
Like didn't think about what I actually wanted to do if golf didn't work out because I didn't think that was a thing.
Sure.
So did marketing, got a job in Atlanta with basically cold calling and sending like emails. It was like medical sales kind of, or medical software sales, which would have been super lucrative had I stayed. But after 2 months, I decided I didn't really want to do it. And so I walked in and quit, called my dad, and he was like, what do you mean you just quit? And I said, well, I didn't want to do it anymore. So I left the job. And my dad's like, well, do you have a job lined up? And I was like, no. And so I have very fortunate situations. So my parents helped me live for about 2 or 3 months until I got my next job. But so that's about 2016. And then I just got a secretary job at a construction company and just did that because I was like, I have no experience.
Right.
I've never had a job, never had an internship really. I've been like a cocktail waitress at a nice bar in Palm Beach and that's about it. So I was like, I'll just start at the very bottom. And so it's about the youngest, about 12 years there.
Okay.
So there's a pretty big age gap. So I didn't really have a chance to make friends there.
Right.
Whereas that first job, everyone was like my age and I didn't really think about making, I don't know. I mean, I have so many regrets, which I shouldn't say, but it's like, why didn't I just stay and
stop judging yourself?
Yeah. But anyway,
it's your story.
Exactly.
It's okay.
And so, I was working at the secretary job, started like March 2016 or April 2016. I still hadn't met Kevin at this point.
Yeah.
So, didn't know him. And I was still going out and drinking on the weekends and stuff. And like, I like to go out and have a good time. And then, but I wasn't seeing the results like in my body because I was like working out a lot. And, at that time I was going to Rock House.
Oh yes. I remember that.
TVT to Rock House. That was a great place. Yeah. So I met a lot of girls through that, but, and I just thought Atlanta would be great because like I knew people from college that were moving to Atlanta, but none of my super close friends ended up here.
Yeah.
So I was kind of bummed out about that because they all ended up going to grad school. So I started this job in May 2016 is when I did a Whole30 because I was like, well, I'm drinking, I'm doing all this, and I'm not seeing results in my body. So I did a Whole30 and I lost weight like immediately. And not that I was ever big, but I just had, just more weight on my body than I feel like I needed. And it was probably inflammation, to be honest.
Sure.
So I learned how to eat. I learned what was good and like, or I shouldn't say good, just
healthy foods.
And what really nourishes your body. But didn't really teach me balance. And so I was like, wow, paleo is the only way to eat. I have to eat everything that is like vegetables, fruits, meat from the farm down, down the lane or whatever. No breads, no pasta, like basically no carbs. But I was sleeping great and, I felt amazing. I ended up kind of losing touch and not necessarily losing friends because I think they would be fine if I reached out today. But almost basically losing touch with the girls that I was going out with.
Just because you were becoming obsessed about what was going in your body.
So who knows if I wasn't, they must have not been the best of friends, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, I just became obsessed with it. And that whole summer of 2016, I ate Whole30. I could tell you exactly what I ate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for literally 3 months straight. Did not veer from it. I did flywheel 3 times a week. I did Lagree 2 times a week. And then I worked out with a trainer twice a week. So I literally had no days off. And I would do yoga in the evening after work because I worked with people that, you know, were much older, most in their 40s and 50s. And so they didn't really care what I was doing or happy hour with me. So it just basically gave me an out to kind of be like super introverted. And I got obsessed with like eating perfectly. And I was like, wow, my body finally looks how I've always wanted it to, you know, super lean. I mean, I was a size 00 though. And I mean, and at the time I didn't think I was small. I just thought I looked normal. Yeah. But if you look at pictures of me, I mean, I'm 10% body fat and I'm 5'3" for reference, but 10% body fat. I was like 100 pounds. I mean, so tiny.
Which is so dangerous for a female.
So dangerous. Didn't have a period for years. And then I met Kevin October 2016 or September 2016. Sometime around then, we met at a mutual friend's dinner. And honestly, I feel like I was just so fresh to Atlanta. So I guess I'm 23 at that time. And I missed out on so many friendships of meeting new people. And like the girl who introduced Kevin and I really owe her a phone call or a text. Because she didn't know me at the time. So she didn't know I was struggling or what I was going through. She is my college best friend's childhood best friend. So my best friend Meredith from college, her best friend Rachel introduced Kevin and I because it was her birthday dinner. And for some reason at this time in my disordered eating, I started to kind of go out to dinners kind of a little bit. I was nervous I was going to gain like 20 pounds the next morning. But so I went out to her birthday dinner because she had just moved to Atlanta, and Meredith's like, you guys will be the best friends. And I honestly think we really would or could still be really good friends. We're very similar. She loved flywheel, like worked out together and stuff, liked to eat good food and go out, and also likes to stay in. But so met Kevin there. We ended up like going to the Ivy after that night, which was like a big night for me in that time. And
it's a big night for people right now.
Yeah, I know.
It's just opened again.
Yeah. And from there with Kevin, it's basically history. Like, I don't know how Kevin dated me, but he did. So with the girl Rachel who introduced Kevin and I, it was like we would like make plans and then I would always cancel and then reschedule and then cancel again. And she got so frustrated with it. She was like, do you not like me? Like, what am I doing wrong? You know? And I think she thought it was something on her, or that I just really didn't want to be her friend or something, which 100% could see that. And I just wish I had someone in Atlanta I was close enough to be like, what is going on with you?
Yeah.
Like, what you're doing is not normal. And I just never had that. Like,
so were you canceling because you were afraid to go out and like,
I was afraid.
Eat dinner, or like be around?
I was afraid to go off track. And I was already going off track because I was dating Kevin, who was taking me to all these fun dinners, and we were going out, staying out late, drinking. And so I just didn't want to like get back into that routine of going out so much where I started to gain a bunch of the weight back. So it really kind of continued through 2017. And I was afraid to have Kevin over at my place for a while because I didn't want him to see like what I ate. Like, I was almost ashamed of like how rigid I was with what I ate. And I don't think he knew how like nervous I was going out to dinners with him at first. Just to eat the food. But then it got really bad in like 2017 too. And it's funny, I like I'm really close to my sister-in-laws. They're like my sisters basically. But so Kevin has a twin brother and he has an older sister. He has 2 older sisters actually. He has a half sister too. But I was talking to one of my sister-in-laws who's Kevin's twin brother's wife.
Okay.
We went on a big family trip in 2017, and I remember I was so nervous for it. I was like, how am I going to work out? What am I going to eat?
Right.
I mean, not having that control over food was like gave me so much anxiety.
Yeah.
It makes me so sad how much I missed out on life in those like 2 years.
Yeah.
So we went to the Caymans, and it was fine. And I don't know if his family necessarily knew what I was going through. I'm sure you could definitely tell. Cause I mean, like, I woke up, we ran 7 miles in the morning, and I was not a runner, but I would get up and run. I actually was training for a half marathon at that time too, but I still didn't want to run. I'll get into that, I guess, a little bit, but I was talking to Melissa, who is, the sister-in-law I was talking about, just recently, and, telling her that like when I was in the Caymans, like my eating disorder was like full on. Like I was scared to eat, and like I would eat like a poached egg in the morning. I mean, I ate so few calories when I was like at home. Like my only carb was a small sweet potato at lunch. I mean, crazy. Like now I eat so much bread now. I'm like, I don't know how I did it. But I guess when you're alone and like you're single and stuff, I just felt like, I don't know, I just got into a routine and just stuck to it, you know, and it's easy to do when you don't have like a roommate or, you know, someone else there. And Kevin kind of started to disrupt it, and, in a good way.
Yeah.
But got back from the Caymans, and then I actually had a girls trip in Vancouver, which I didn't even fully enjoy myself there. We ran the Lululemon half marathon, which I was crazy and did not train for it, and ran it in an hour and a half. Jeez. So sore. I like physically could not walk, but I was like, yeah, I'm fine. We're like walking around all these towns in Vancouver. I was like, I'm good. Cause one of my college teammates is from Canada. So we like, a bunch of us like flew out there. So, you know, everyone's like drinking and doing all this stuff, but I like wouldn't touch the alcohol, you know, and they wanted to order like Papa John's. I could not do it. I had to find like a healthy spot. And I felt like when I got back from anything, I had to like restart, get back into my routine. And then at some point I started to notice I was gaining weight back. I think late 2017 into 2018. And I think it was a combination of like, one, not being able to eat what I normally did, because at that point I was living with Kevin. We moved in pretty quickly.
Did he know what was going on?
I don't know. I think he knew something was going on. And of course now he really knows. Right. And he was like,
or he's going to know now.
He's going to find out. But he knows. I mean, I'm not going to lie. To this day, I still will say things like, man, I feel really guilty for us just eating out like 3 days in a row. Yeah. And he's like, it's okay, Sarah. Yeah. Like, you know, he's so patient with me. And honestly, I really need to see a therapist, but it's expensive, you know? Yeah. I just kind of need to invest that time and money into it. Especially when we start having kids, especially if we have any daughter or son, really either. Like, you know, I can remember, you know, I think my mom was always conscious of her body growing up. So I think it just kind of, your kids kind of do what, you know, your parents are doing. So Kevin's like, you know, if we have kids, like you cannot be saying things like this around them. You can't like look at your stomach in the mirror, which is something I had to get over, where you like lift your shirt up in the morning, see how flat your stomach is. Yep. So,
been there, done that.
Yes. So, it's just crazy. And, I just feel so bad that I just got into that crazy mindset, you know. It's like,
so I'm here. Yeah. You're, I feel like you are still very much in that space, and you haven't, and I'm going to speak from experience. I've been anorexic in my teenage years. I'm 6 feet tall. There was a point in my life when I weighed 135 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And I was a size 2. I mean, that is like
so small for,
and I'm a
your
big
height.
Human being. I'm like, you know, I'm not small framed.
Right.
But I was anorexic in my teens, and it was because of swimming and things that my coach said, and, you know, the whole sports thing. But then as I got into my 20s, it became bulimia. And I think there are times, and I was really open with this a few episodes ago, that I still have slip ups. It's still there. Yeah. And I think the most important part and the best part of a situation like this, especially with females and eating disorders and even men, you know, they deal with it. They are less likely to talk about it, but is to be able to get to a point in your life when you can look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I don't care that you slipped up. It's okay. I still love you. And you actually have grace and compassion for yourself and what you're going through versus, you know, you get up the next day and you make yourself go run or you make yourself do something as if it's like you're paying for it, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I ate a huge dinner last night and I've got to, they always say like, don't do things because of what your body, you know, can or can't do. Do it because it's able to do it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so I think for you, you're still in that space where you haven't come to that place yet where you can actually have some compassion and go out and not feel anxious or feel guilty.
Yes. And I will say, like, I was talking to my OBGYN, who's great, actually. She, like we've talked long through, because I was worried my eating disorder would hinder us getting pregnant in the future. But you know, she told me there's like a difference between like, you know, feeling guilty or kind of wondering like, should I really eat this or not? Like in the moment, you know, guilt. She was like, if you feel guilty, like 4 days after like eating that ice cream, you know, that's something that you kind of want to think about, but it's also about, you know, also being mindful, because you don't want to just eat ice cream all the time either, you know, like for every meal. Not saying it's bad to eat after dinner every night, you know, but so I hope that came out right. But how she said it kind of like really clicked with me, because I still am, you know, trying to get through it, and I don't know when or if I could ever be 100%. But for the most part, I'm pretty good at just like eating it and moving on with my life.
Yeah.
I will say for the first time in a very, very long time, I literally will wake up and be like, what does my body want to do today? Do I want to do Legree? Do I want to do yoga? Do I want to lift weights?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm pretty in tune with my body now. And I actually probably eat like 3 or 4 slices of bread daily. Like, and I don't worry if I don't eat a ton of vegetables anymore. Like, I don't know if I like literally exhausted salads because I ate so much salad during that time. And my body just like cannot digest like vegetables anymore, I feel like. So if like 2 years ago, if I knew I was going to be eating how I eat now, which is like pretty carb heavy and like, you know, I eat a lot of like avocado and peanut butter and a ton of fruit, I think I would be like, what? Like, no way. So I'm pretty in tune with like how I want to eat, and I don't have a ton of guilt. It's more just sometimes for some reason, and I definitely need to see a therapist about it, but it's like, if I went to Upbeat and I got a great salad, I would not, sometimes like definitely in my past, would not consider that a healthy meal because I didn't make it. I didn't know what went into it. So that's something else I'm kind of working through. Yeah. It's definitely not something like I'm at the point where like if a friend is like on a Tuesday, like, hey, you want to go get drinks and do this and that? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. You know, we're at a time when I was really struggling, I would never do that. Right. I'd be like, why don't we go in a week so I can plan this and I can work out extra? Which I wouldn't tell them, but in my head, I was thinking that. It's just funny, you know, it's just like the only time I thought I was eating healthy was like if I was eating at home and I had to eat a certain amount of meals at home, I could only have like one cheat meal, you know, quote cheat meal. Cheat meal a week. You know, it's funny. It's like my mom's always like, I don't want to be 20 unless I could go back and be 20 with what I know now. Right. Of course. And I'm like, we all want that. But I now like fully understand that because I'm like, wow. And looking back, like even in high school and college, I feel like I missed out on some friendships because I was kind of introverted because I think of like the dad issues and stuff growing up. And then also just like being like, in college, I started to develop that, like I said, kind of restriction. So I wouldn't necessarily go to every like little thing. Right. So I think I missed out on a lot too. even though I had a great experience, I think I didn't have the full experience I could have had, and just like lived the life, done the college thing. If I gained 20 pounds, I gained 20 pounds and moved on with my life.
I think it's important to understand too, that like when we go through things throughout our life, we're never fully healed. I truly don't think that. I think we're always healing. And there are stages of our life where we don't actually have to deal with it. And then stages where it kind of comes up again. And for me, I've had to learn what works best for me. And especially last year with what I went through, and then this year with Corona and what everyone's going through, it's like I just have to be more aware and cognizant and practice the things that I know make me healthy. And especially when it comes to food, what does that look like?
Totally. You know? And I think that's something, and people always ask me like, how did you like stop having your disordered eating? And I'm like, I don't know if it really ever stopped, but it got a lot better.
Well, you're learning. You're educating yourself. You're learning, and we have to go back to the fact that like you can get a huge salad, and like if there's crap food in it, it's not necessarily healthy. So the foods that you're thinking, you know, that's what orthorexia is. These foods that you quote unquote think are healthy, you can overeat as well. And it can do a real number to your body. Right.
100%.
I think it's all about learning what works for your body, what your body craves. There's a lot of people that fruits and vegetables bother their stomach.
And I think I'm one of those people now.
Which you know is again, it's all about taking your health into your own hands. And learning that like what you do with the food that you're consuming, knowing how much of an effect it actually has on your mental health too. Not only of the control, but the gut health and the lining of your microbiome and all the stuff that goes on with the gut brain connection. Which is something I talked to Kristen about a while ago. So I'm interested to see, you know, what you do with the next couple years, knowing that you do want a family.
And Kevin's gonna like kill me for saying this, but we want to start trying pretty soon, or at least I want to start trying soon. I don't know if I'm necessarily ready, but if I given the opportunity, like I wanted to be kind of a younger mom. And, you know, I got kind of lucky meeting Kevin at 23 and getting married pretty quickly. So and having older parents too, you know, I want them to be around as much as they can for the kids we do have. And I'm not necessarily, and I don't know what it is like to have a kid, so I'm just speaking here, but you know, my mom's like, it's not going to stop your life when you have a kid, you know, and you know, she's like, just know that it's not going to be all about you, which, you know, as an only child, it's only ever been about you. So I am curious about it. And, you know, it's funny. I feel like I just literally woke up one day and just like realized I was having an eating disorder. You know, it's funny. It's like, you don't necessarily know you're in it. You know that you're doing something probably not normal, but you're like, wow, I look so good. And then it's just like one day in 2018, I think I just like realized, whoa, like, what am I doing? And then I was doing way too much high intensity working out.
I went
to like
opposite way.
And I started to get pretty puffy with that. So that's a whole story in itself. And took 2 months and actually like really didn't work out and just lost a ton of water weight, which so I've been all over the place. I've, you know, gained a ton of weight. I've lost a ton of weight, and and that's not great for your body either. The whole yo-yo dieting too. So now I'm just trying to like really try to be intuitive with my eating, which I know people probably are tired of seeing on Instagram. Like if you follow any RDs, they're all like, you know, pushing that. But it's really true. Like once you kind of get in tune with your body, like you said, like what I eat or it's funny, like when you follow influencers and stuff, and it's like when they're posting like, oh, this is what I eat and how I eat in a day, and this works for me, and I, you know, intermittent fast or skip breakfast, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, that's great that it works for them, but I think you have to take everything kind of with a grain of salt. Like that's not going to work for yourself, you know, always. So it's kind of like trial and error, you know, and I feel like I'm just really, once I'm calm and chill around food, I really just eat till I'm satisfied. And then I just kind of am like, that was good. And I move on. And I also too, instead of like eating around that dessert or something, I used to think like, okay, I have to have, you know, a really balanced dinner and then I can have my dessert. But now I make this really good, like, and granted it's healthy, like a chickpea date cookie dough recipe.
Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram.
It is so good.
I think I screenshot
on the Stat Wellness. It is so good.
Yeah.
And I think it's a take on the girl who runs Tasty as Fit.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
She has great recipes, but I like took her recipe and just kind of made it a little bit simpler. It is so good. I literally could eat the whole thing, and sometimes I do for dinner, and I'm like, I'm satisfied, I'm done, and it's like I almost just feel more calm in my body, and I feel like my digestion is better, and just I don't know, I just feel like I'm not holding on to, I know it sounds, not to talk about our, you know, bodies, but I feel almost slimmer in a way, and not that that's what I'm aiming for by any means, but I just feel like I'm giving my body what it needs, and it's just moving on, you know?
I think I mean, it's pretty clear that like your eating issues are directly correlated with your anxiety, and your anxiety is directly correlated with your eating issues. So until you've got, you know, the anxiety and dealing with what you've been through as a kid and how it's affected you, and the control and that sort of thing, not, you know, healed again, it's always going to be there. But now that you've started that healing process over the past year and a half, the eating disorder, the orthorexia is becoming more controlled, but it sounds like it's still very much an issue.
Yeah.
So you're actually the first person I've interviewed that's still very much in it.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful that you opened up, because I think there's a lot of people that hear the people that come on and they're like, that's inspirational and they've gone through it. But to know that somebody's still actually going in it and you're open about it is huge. And, you know, being able to have an actual candid conversation and say like, I'm still struggling. Yeah. I mean, that's hard. It's really hard to do.
And it's hard too, because I feel like, I mean, I feel a lot better now about it, but like I get like anxiety around meeting new people and anxiety about, you know, all kinds of things. I'm like, are they going to find out that, especially at the time when I was really in the thick of it, like that I eat, you know, pretty strictly and stuff like that. So, and it's funny, like I would eat like large quantities of salad because I was starving. Yeah. And it's like, you know, people at the office would always be like, wow, you like eat so much salad. And I'm like, yeah, I'm starving. But yeah, I'm still, you know, I feel like I'm kind of on the upward trend now for sure. Yeah. But still something that's always kind of in the back of my mind. And it's, you know, it's sometimes I definitely used to even get nervous going to my in-laws' house where it's not like I can control it versus like my parents, where I can be like, I'm not eating this, I'm not eating that. Right. But it's gotten a lot better, and Kevin's always been a good advocate for me. And sometimes, you know, if like one of my in-laws is like, well, let's go to this Chinese restaurant, and Kevin's like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, are you saying no because you don't want to do it? Or are you saying no because, you know, I probably wouldn't be my first choice? So that's a conversation Kevin and I have to have, because I get nervous that his family is like, has to cater around me. Right. I don't think they think that at all, because I know I love them, they love me. But so it's that's still kind of fresh, is like just letting Kevin know, like, I'm okay. I will find something to eat. And if I don't, I'll just eat whatever, you know, like it's okay. Yeah. And also telling myself that it's okay too.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing is, and I think the one thing about this year is it's kind of putting things into perspective, whether you're dealing with an eating disorder or mental health or whatever. It's like, good Lord, is anything really that big of a deal? Exactly. At least that's how I feel right now. I'm like, ugh. And
in 10 years, I'm going to look back and be like, why did I care about what my body looked like? Or why did I think? Yes.
Well, you're already doing that. You're looking back at you going
when I was
to college,
18, 19.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're
and
like,
it's
I missed out on this or missed out on that. So if you can kind of take that knowledge and apply it to what you're going through right now, maybe it will help you kind of shift the perspective and the narrative in your head and create that compassion and that grace and that, hey, Sarah, it's okay. Yeah. You know, and I'm just grateful that you were completely open and honest with it. Yeah.
It's a great little session.
But you're teaching fitness, you're doing all the things that you need to do to keep moving forward. And that's huge. And one of the biggest things is being able to kind of admit it.
Yep.
You know, for so long we deny. I'm healthy. I'm stepping on the scale 3 times a day. Like, that's not healthy. But now you're able to say, like, this is what I've gone through, still going through it. And that is huge. That's a big step in the right direction.
Yeah. And people always ask me, they're like, how is it working in fitness when you can be, when I was so obsessive about it, which is what orthorexia is. I guess it's like a newer term, I feel like, or maybe a term that people haven't used until recently.
Right.
So, but I mean, it hasn't changed. If anything, it's almost made me feel like better in the sense, because I feel like I'm finally doing something I love and I can relax. And corporate was tough for me because I had to like sit at a desk and I couldn't leave, and I was getting super anxious about stuff. And but it gives me kind of some freedom to like kind of connect with who I am again and just heal from what I did go through.
Sure.
And sometimes I even feel guilty because I left corporate and I'm like, man, I, left a big, salary and benefits, and granted I'm married, but Kevin's like, this makes you 100 times happier. Like, just, what you're doing now is going to prepare you for what we want to do in 10 years,
right? Which
ideally would be to open my own, studio possibly somewhere. So, I don't know. So I'm on that journey.
Yeah, you are on that journey, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah,
so I'm grateful for that. And if we want to find you, what's your Insta name?
Yes, so it's for those that know me, it used to be Sweaty City Chick, but had to kind of put that to bed because that kind of
perpetuated.
It did,
stuff.
Perpetuated it, and also just became forceful for me. And I'm just influencers. Kudos to you, because that's a tough job. So it's now, Instagram is at Sarah with an H Brown Laderberg. It's a nice mouthful right there. And it's Laderberg with a D, not a T.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's it.
I'll make sure to tag you on the description.
Perfect.
And I appreciate your time. And thank you for being on 6 Feet Above. This episode was sponsored by Pro Vital Solutions. Make sure to visit provitalsolutions.com and enter 6 Feet Above at checkout to get your 5% discount. Thank you for listening to this episode of the 6 Feet Above podcast. I'm your host, Megan Armstrong. Subscribe so you never miss another episode, as a new episode is released every Tuesday. And if you're enjoying the series, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. Follow the show on Instagram at 6 Feet Above Podcast to keep the conversation going, and feel free to reach out to me directly at Megstagram11. This episode is a product of Audiographies, produced by Megan Armstrong and Denor Sepolia, edited by Jacob Smolian, and the music is by Keenan Willis. I'll see you next time.